Hello, Kelowna Unitarians, and good morning to everyone who is joining us here in this new and interesting means of gathering. First, I would like to say thank you to all of the people who are making this service possible today. We have Linda Goubert helping out with our music this morning. Kim Dawson and Rob Sebo are in charge of the chalice and the candles of joy and sorrow. Allie McMillan is helping out with moderating our technology. And I think Jan is going to be helping with some of the singing as well. I hope that we are able to pull off a worshipful time for all of us this morning. We've gathered here because we see worth in this community. We find that these relationships are worthy. This time that we have set aside, perhaps every week, or whenever we can make it, or maybe this is our first time together, we have set aside this time to connect with our deepest self. A time when we can connect with our deepest selves in a community, to witness one another as we all seek to find our grounding, seek to find steady footing in a world that has turned upside down. I welcome you into this sacred space, this time set apart from other times, this place, no matter where you are currently, this is sacred. This place is sacred because you have chosen to be here. Welcome. Let this be a holy time for you and for all of us. Last week, we struggled a little bit with music playing and picking up through the speakers. So this week, we are going to be having recorded music. Our gathering song will be the hymn that you are probably familiar with. It is Blue Boat Home. I don't know how many people read the sermon description that is put in the monthly newsletter. But when I was planning this service back in mid-February, I have to tell you, I was very excited about this Sunday service. We were going to be welcoming 5 new members into our congregation. We were going to create and practice together a new communion ritual, and we were going to be discussing the ideas of rebirth. The rebirth of spring, the birth of a new year, and the renaissance of the Kelowna Unitarians community as we continue moving forward on this shared ministry together. I wanted to talk about the wisdom that we can find in a rebirth, the sweetness that comes with this time of year. I wanted to talk about the possibilities that we can find in Renaissance, the possibilities of doing things differently, and the possibilities of shifting our perspective. And then my world turned upside down. I think it might have also been set on fire. I had been paying attention to the news about the coronavirus, regularly hearing updates from CBC morning shows and through the political and news-based podcasts that I listen to. 3 weeks ago, the leadership here at KU and I began talking about how to keep people from holding hands at the end of the service. This seemed so odd at the time, and people wondered how necessary it really was. Then a worldwide pandemic was declared, and we wanted to make sure that people had the opportunity to stay connected and to stay safe, to not have to choose between their safety and their faith community. The amount of questions that I had to defer to on that next Sunday morning. Were we going to continue to have services like this, where we were sharing on camera? Would we be able to have a potluck in April? How long was this all going to last? And so now I'm left pondering more questions. What do you tell a community of people when a global pandemic has been called? How do you preach to people who are being told they need to isolate within their homes, to socially distance themselves when they do go outside, and to not have any human contact except for those whom they live with. How does one hold on to the anxieties of this time, but not to belittle them and not to blow them out of proportion? How do we even know what a realistic anxiety at this point in time looks like? Suffice to say, I'm not certain I know how to do any of this, but I do believe that it is important to hold on to these questions as we continue to move forward in this world. 2 weeks ago, my colleague and mentor, Reverend Sean Newton in Toronto, Ontario, preached a sermon that he called Love in a Time of COVID-19, How to Spiritually Prepare for a Pandemic, in which he talked about the theological underpinnings that come along with this time and how connecting with each other and recognizing our faith within this time is going to help us get through this. I would always suggest leaning into our understanding of our faith, not just at times of pressure and crises. As I have witnessed the number of confirmed cases of the coronavirus, both within British Columbia, but around the world, I am reminded, as they climb every day this week, I am reminded of how we are so very evidently connected to one another. It is impossible to ignore this fact now. The interconnected web is basically being highlighted for us. We are being given the opportunity to witness how very reliant and dependent we are on one another. And yes, it is an incredibly awful way to have that come through in a pandemic. But hopefully we will be able to hold on to this concept as we move forward and find healthy ways to connect. I remember as a youth and even as a young adult, when I went away on spiritual camps or retreats, we would stand together in a circle at the end of our gatherings, much like we do on Sunday mornings. One person would have a ball of yarn. They would hold on to the end of the string and toss the ball to someone on the other end of the circle. This would continue, each person holding on to their piece of yarn and tossing the ball to someone else, until finally everybody was connected to that circle, holding on to a string that was weaving its way through the community. We would all hold on and pull a little bit, leaning back and feeling the pressure of our strings, recognizing that if one person pulled too hard, everybody would go tumbling toward them. We were trying to remember that we are interdependent, that we were connected, no matter the distance between us. Each person would take a piece of that yarn home and allow themselves to be reminded that they were connected to a community that cared for them and would support them. We are witnessing this interdependence now. We witness this web and the damage that can be done when we ignore it and when we don't pay attention. What we need to do is remember how important and necessary our connections are, instead of being reminded constantly about how dangerous they are. Yes, please listen to the CDC, listen to the orders set forth by the health officers. Please do not leave your house unless it is necessary. When you do leave, please stay safe distances away from other people. But know that we do not need to meet in person, and we do not need to stand side by side in order to support one another. Much like Piglet and Pooh did, please reach out to those you have not heard from. If there are people that you are concerned about, pick up the phone and call them. Connect with this community through our coffee hour or at one of the other online services that we will be offering in the days to come. While the danger of our interconnected web is highlighted in these days and weeks to come, Let us remember that we are connected in magnificent and life-giving ways as well. Please spend time strengthening those healthy connections. I'm not sure if I have ever experienced a more visible and tangible representation that our destiny is all wrapped up with one another. My survival is directly and indirectly linked to and tied up with your survival. I have never had that realization come into such hyper focus as I have had now. Quite literally, I am relying on all of you, and you are relying on all of us to ensure that we do not overwhelm the organizations that are going to help us through this pandemic. And as we move forward in this new reality, for as long as it lasts, Kelowna Unitarians is relying on all of you for not only its survival, but also for it to thrive during this time. Connect with each other. Watch out for opportunities to connect here using this platform. We will continue to be offering Soul Matters groups or small spiritual groups here online. I've decided that I will be teaching an introduction to Unitarian Universalism class here as well. If you would like to host something using our technology, please reach out to me and let me know. We have the capacities to connect. So many people have been asking, when will things go back to normal? And I actually shudder at this idea. What if we take our time now to realize a new possibility for our future? I don't want to go back to normal. I want to move forward into a new reality. I want to create those possibilities now, and I want to hold on to them when restrictions are lifted. Will you help me? What are your ideas? What are the possibilities that you want to create here? I leave you this morning with a poem from Reverend Lynn Unger, minister at the Church of the Larger Fellowship. She wrote this 2 days ago. It's called Imagine. Imagine with me for a moment. Don't worry, I'm not saying it's real. Imagine, if you can, that there has been not a calamity, but a great awakening. Pretend just for a moment that we all so love our threatened Earth that we stopped going on cruises. We limited international flights. We worked on cherishing the places where we already are. In this pretty fantasy, everyone who can possibly stop commuting does. They spend the extra time with their kids or their pets or garden. We have the revelation that everyone needs health care. One needs sick leave. They need steady work. It occurs to us that healthcare workers are heroes, also teachers. Not to mention the artists of all kinds who teach us resilience and joy. Imagine, if you will, that we turn to our neighbors in mutual aid, trading eggs for milk, checking in on those who are elderly or alone. Imagine that each of us felt suddenly called to wonder in this moment, what does the world need from me? What are my gifts? Yes, I know it's just a fantasy. The world could never change so radically overnight. But imagine. Thank you.